When it comes to Nanowrimo, it's always about one thing, and that one thing is time management. There's things that we plan for, and there's things that's unforeseen. Can we really plan more than prepping our projects to some degree where we feel it's going to help us? And even then, our plans are always going to be changing and growing as the story changes and grows. So I think there's really one key that sums everything up, and that's adaptability. It's been a minute since I've shouted out some fellow writers, so this is a reminder to myself and others that communities don't build themselves. We all need to make an effort to help one another and strengthen the platform we're all standing on. Show others the same appreciation you would like them to show you, and shout it to the nines. So let's talk about adaptability. For example, I'm in the process of waiting on this blasted surgery, which is going to happen probably right in the middle of nano if the doctor has his way, and I'm sure that's how it'll work out because Murphy's Law says that's what's going to happen. Going into this, I have to plan to either type one-handed or use my phone to dictate, and therein is a prime example of remaining adaptable. I've talked before about if you can't be at your desk and your computer, to take a portable tablet and keyboard with you and try to get some work done, whether you're at work and on lunch or break, or maybe you're out shopping and running errands and you can dictate for a few minutes in your car on your phone. It's not going to be perfect, but what first draft is, it's going to require some fixing. I think that comes under the category of what kind of writer you are. Either you're going to be able to have fun trying new things, or it's going to go outside of your comfort zone. And that leads me into another subject. I think there are two basic kinds of writers that fall into two categories. What are those two categories? The first one is planner or pantser, and that's an argument that everybody crosses paths with, and it goes back to whether you feel comfortable planning your story before you write it or getting into draft and just flying by the seat of your pants. I don't buy that argument because you're really doing the same thing. The only difference is the planner is doing a first draft in shorthand and a pantser is doing a first draft in longhand and spelling everything out. You're both basically going to the same place. You're just opting for slightly different methods of doing it. The second category is the fast drafter and the slow drafter. Now there's successful writers who do both. A slow drafter is going to perfect as they go along. They're going to try to get it in as good a shape as possible, so by the time they finish their first draft, there's not a lot of cleanup. The fast drafter, on the other hand, is going to look at it like the first draft is a rough sketch. You're going to put it down in layers. First is very rough, and you're going to build on it and draft after draft. Again, what's the argument here? You're both heading for the same place. It's just that whether you're a fast drafter or a slow drafter, that's going to affect how you come at nano immensely. And that leads us into our next subject. What does a win mean to you? To some writers, winning might be just participating and having fun. Other people seem to put a lot of pressure on themselves, and between work and whatever else you have to do in life, it can become a bit daunting. I don't like the idea of someone has to win and another person loses by not meeting their goal. And thank goodness this time Nanowrimo has discounts for just participating. Most people do this for Scrivener, and there's a 20% discount just for participating, and if you finish your word count goal, then you can get Scrivener for 50% off. So either way, you can get a decent discount. And I think that's a better way to come at it, and I'm glad they did that this year. But when it comes to the idea of winners and losers and people who don't feel they can participate because you have to get that high word count, when it comes to the slow drafter, this is going to be very intimidating because you most likely know you're not going to do 50,000 words in a month. You're going to be perfecting, you're going to be working at it slow, and that seems like a waste of time. But therein, I disagree. I think if you participate and you're with other writers, you have the camaraderie, you have an adventure. you're kind of taking it like writing teaches us. It's not about getting there, it's the journey that counts. So if you have a month where you're dedicating yourself to writing, kind of talking with other writers and feeling inspired, chances are you'll get more done within the month of November than you would if you just wrote on your own. And you'll have the fun of the adventure. And believe me, it is fun. I've done it privately for a good number of years because I thought I wouldn't fit in with the criteria of Nano. And now that I've done it, it doesn't matter if I reach my word count or not. I'm going to write, I'm going to enjoy myself, and it's going to be an adventure. When it comes to the fast drafters, if you're lucky, you will get that rough sketch down. But the rough sketch is just that. It's a first draft. And what if you don't reach the goal for that first draft? Is it going to be the end of the world? Or are you going to have fun? Or are you going to feel pressured and disappointed? The same thing applies here. You do tend to push yourself a little bit when you have that pseudo deadline. And that's another good thing for all of us. It's practice with a deadline. Most of us that are coming into writing for the first time, maybe this is your first novel, maybe you haven't published yet. And if you haven't worked on deadlines, this is a good practice session. See how your instincts are coming about. See what you can do within a month's time. It will gauge you on where you are. It will show you what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. And I don't think that's a lose situation either, because we all have to put ourselves through our paces and be realistic with what we're doing in the moment, how far we've come from the moment before, and where we'd like to go, and what needs strengthening within our craft. This brings up the next subject of warming up and also not burning yourself out. I know that we're supposed to write the whole 50,000 words within the month of November. I don't think that it's good to come in cold either. Spend the rest of the month while you're planning trying to be at your computer, even if you're not working on your manuscript, you're working on your outline, you're working on another piece. Start a secondary project. Do something to warm up to where you're going to be writing a little bit each day. It doesn't have to be a lot, but you're building a habit where you'll be able to sit down at your computer, you'll be able to do whatever you're doing, whether you're dictating at work or sitting in your room, because let's face it, it's hard to sit at your computer and not check your internet, not check your phone. There's all those little things that you have to formulate habits around and circumvent the habits that are existing in your life now to form new ones to be able to get your manuscript done. And I think that's what this month is about too. It's about seeing what you can do to get out of your own way. And aside from that, you need those moments where you're fueling your creativity, where you're reading, watching movies, or even just getting out and taking a walk or doing something where you're not thinking about your writing. Because if you keep thinking for 30 days and you're trying to go, you're going to burn yourself out at some point and you're going to really slow down. And that's where discouragement can set in, because once you burn out and you don't feel like doing it, instead of taking that hour off or even a day off here and there, you're going to take several days off to recuperate. And I've done it, and I've seen other people do it. And once you lose those few days or a week, then you start to feel like you're in need of catching up. And you get overwhelmed. And that's the fastest way that I think leads to failure. So don't neglect yourself, and don't neglect your time to fuel your brain, as well as your time to write each day. In terms of pressure, let's alleviate pressure and replace it with fun. This is why we're all doing it, because we enjoy it, right? Let's be real. Drafting, whether you're a slow drafter or a fast drafter, is a crazy quilt at best. You have days that you write brilliant stuff where it just seems to flow out on the page and everything seems to be in relatively good shape. And then you have other days where you're writing total crap that reading the phone book would be probably an equivalent to how interesting the words seem on the page. But I guarantee that when you come back to your draft after, some of those brilliant moments aren't going to seem quite as brilliant as you thought they were. And some of the terrible moments are going to seem pretty passable. So don't stress over what you're getting done or how you're getting done from day to day. This month is horseshoeing the day-to-day life into a busy schedule where most of us aren't writing every day. Most of us don't have a set time to sit and write. And now we're suddenly trying to do that. So there's going to be little ups and downs, but those ups and downs would happen even if writing was your full-time job, because that's just the way it happens. And here's the good news, and this is news that you already know in your heart of hearts, and that's that all of this will inspire you to do better. I look at my writing when I finish a first draft and I see those bad places, and I love fixing bad writing. It inspires me to do better. And I think that deep down, what we all do when we come at that is we see what we need to do. We see where we've been, we see where we are, and we know that we've grown from it all because we understand immediately when we see it that it needs fixing. That in itself is progress, right? If I see something really stupid that I did or really terrible, it might sting, or I might feel disappointed that I wrote such crap for a moment, but then I'll look at it and I'll get charged up to do better. And I think that's part of the process. If we didn't see where we failed, we would never get better. And if we're not objective enough to see where we failed, we won't get better. I think we have to trust our own process. And I know that's a saying that's thrown around a lot, but when it comes to being creative, I've been creative my entire life, and I find this to be very true. Life is creative. So people that say this and don't understand it usually aren't creative, but as creators, we understand things from a slightly different perspective, and we know on a gut level that this is true. So trust that you'll grow tomorrow with everything that you write today, and keep those keyboards clacking until you know that you know that you know that you've written something good, that you've paid your dues, and you know that it was all time well spent. That's why they call it a practice.